This episode of Heroes of the Horn is brought to you by Petru of House Zoldi. His probing hands fell into the water. This was the place. But with snow swirling about, he could barely see. He flailed, searching, numb hands splashing. One hit something at the edge of the ice, and he commanded his fingers to close, felt frozen hair crackling.
Welcome to Heroes of the Horn, a Wheel of Time podcast. I am Sir Matt.
And I am Sir Ezra. Welcome to our Wheel of Time book club. The horn has sounded, and we have answered the call. Today we are covering The Fires of Heaven, Part 4, Chapters 26 through 35.
Yes, Ez, we're back. We both went on vacation.
Yeah. Much needed vacation.
Together. I went to your part of the world. You went to another part of the world, That's just how it goes. But yeah, it was a nice little break. But guess what? We're back and we've got Wheel of Time news to discuss. We did a YouTube video talking a little bit. I think we're getting a trailer.
Yeah, hopefully here in July, right at Comic-Con. That was pretty cool. We got the Wheel of Time official Twitter and Instagram account, their social media account, came out and showed us the logo, like a new logo for the show. It's animated. It looks sick. It like expands and then kind of contracts into this nice little, circle. Just looked sick. And then the big thing there was the announcement that Rafe will be at a panel for Comic-Con, like a virtual type of panel. And we, in our YouTube video, discussed this. Sir Matt thinks we're getting a freaking trailer.
I think if we don't get a trailer, then something's up.
Yeah, something's wrong.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. So
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think we're getting the trailer. I think that's and we've been saying that. We're saying, hey, Comic-Cons, if you're going to release it, and so we, if you're going to release it this year or early next year. And so it is cool. So at least we know we are getting it officially in 2021. That was another concern we've talked about, was we were saying we hope, it doesn't go too deep into 2022, because that's when it felt like it was going to happen, just so it didn't run up against other big shows that are similar. So now it seems like, hey, we're getting in 2021. A lot of people are saying maybe Black Friday, or Christmas seems to be the that's what a lot of people are on the line are suggesting.
Yeah, which is cool. I'm excited for that, and I hope he just gives some. I said this in the YouTube video, but I hope Rafe just gives us more context, and I'm guessing too with the trailer. At the end of that trailer, they would say it would have the date, right? It'd probably say like December 1st or December whatever. Give us a date. 2021, and we'd have the
I'm sure. I think we'll get the official date. Yeah.
And
if you look at other shows that are coming out, yesterday The Witcher was just announced. Season 2 of The Witcher is coming, and I think they gave an exact date. Let me see here. Witcher season 2. December 17th. So they gave an official date. So I would imagine that we would get something from Wheel of Time. And again, this is another thing where we're like, we don't want it to run up against these other shows because it doesn't have as much leg to stand on, because people just aren't as familiar with it yet. Now, 2 to 3 years from now, who knows? I mean, then it'll be obviously 2-3 seasons in. You'll say Wheel of Time, everyone will know what you're talking about. But so, I think I'm a little more on the November side. I'm thinking like Black Friday, man,
Hey.
Especially because it's Prime as opposed to all these other streaming services.
Right.
It's a great gift, an Amazon Fire Stick or a Kindle tablet. You can get those for cheap.
Right.
Hey, then you know what you can do right on your Kindle tablet? Boom, you got Prime right here. Check out this new show, Wheel of Time, on Prime, on your brand new Kindle Fire or Fire TV app. There you go.
Yeah, I would love that. I think that'd be really cool. I hope they Yeah, I hope they do release it a little bit earlier. And like you said, with The Witcher was a successful season 1. People know what The Witcher is, and they're excited for that to come back out. So yeah, to not compete with it, make it a little bit earlier, feature it in some way, get people excited for the holiday season. Amazon make some sales, by pitching in a new show. And as Sir Matt said, you can watch it on all those devices. That would be really cool. Do you think that's going to happen? You think that's
I
when
think
we want it?
Friday. I think November. Okay. That's my sort of
prediction.
My sort of prediction. I don't know what other Amazon shows maybe are supposed to come out this year. Let's see here. Like to see. Do you launch it up against anything else specifically? Because that's always your sort of issue. But no, I'm thinking right then and there. Boom, here you go. Here's this new show.
Yeah.
Have at it. I think to me that's it. Black Friday. That's my prediction. If we get a trailer, of course. If we don't, what is this panel going to be about?
Oh no! We both agree that there literally has to be a trailer. Otherwise, I don't know what you would talk about the effects of the cast and the crew, the directors, the music, what's going on, the scoring, all that kind of stuff. The pandemic and how it affected filming and production. That I'm sure he's going to talk about that anyways. But God, you've got to say if you keep saying 2021, I mean, at some point you got to promote this thing and start pushing
2020.
Trailers.
We're over halfway through 2021. So
yeah, yes. So, anyways, hopefully that's what's coming out. If you guys have thoughts and feelings about the panel, let us know. Send us that. I thought it was kind of funny that Rafe said he's not necessarily he's going to be speaking or talking at this panel, and he's like, don't they know that speaking or talking is not one of his strong suits or favorite things to do. I thought that's kind of funny. So yeah, we're excited for it. I'm really excited. That's just in a couple weeks, and we'll be getting a lot of news out of Comic-Con for lots of other fandoms and stuff like that. But specifically now, the Wheel of Time is in there, and it's legit, people. It is legit. It's been legit, and it just feels more and more real. And I just cannot wait to see it. So all right, that's kind of our just our catch up on the news there. I don't think there's really anything else. All the other social media. As far as just that was it. I mean, we've not really the little teaser, nothing else. Just basically wait for a couple weeks, sit tight, and we'll see what happens at Comic-Con. So, all right, let me turn real quick. We normally do our pigeons at the end of the show, but I wanted to kind of bring this up before we jump into chapters 26 through 35. And this is part 4 of Fires of the Heaven. I want to bring this up. This is from I hope I'm saying it right, Petru Zoldi. I hope I'm saying the last name right too, who sent us in basically a pigeon saying that what's this? Hello guys, I really love your podcast. It makes it more fun and immersive reading the books. There are two things that I think that I feel haven't been talked about. One is the fact that Moiraine is now obeying Rand. I felt it was an important moment and wanted just to bring that to your attention. The other is what Egwene is doing to Nynaeve in the dream world. I felt that was also a big moment between the two of them. Thanks for your work, and really just kind of wanted us to kind of comment on those. And that's awesome. We've always said all the way along, if there's a moment in these batch of chapters that we don't harp on as much or we don't spend enough time on, and you want us to talk more about it and commentate, please send us a message at thehornofvalir@gmail.com, and we will do that because, Sir Matt, these are big moments. And remember, Moiraine went through the Tir-Ongrial. She was in Rudion. She saw things, whatever. That was interesting that the wise ones allowed her to go there. And she comes out of that, and her behavior towards Rand, the Karakarn, is very different. He who comes with the dawn, she's now obeying Rand. And that's odd for Egwene and others to kind of see that. What does that mean? How do we feel about that? Is there reasons why? Yeah, I think that's really kind of an important thing in this book. And then the other being Egwene and Nynaeve. Basically, Egwene is now scolding Nynaeve. There's almost like role reversal is really what this comment is about.
Roles reversal.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's you go from Nynaeve being the kind of elder or a mentor to Egwene, and now Egwene is kind of pointing out some of her flaws and shortcomings. And it is just kind of trippy too, because then even Egwene is like talking to Moraine and the wise ones, and she's being taught along the way. So it's just a lot of back and forth, not really power struggle, but kind of just the dynamics between mentor slash mentoree.
Things are changing.
Yeah, things are changing.
Things are changing. As last time there was a shadow rising, this time there's fire. Okay,
right.
So fires of heaven.
Yeah,
okay? I mean,
it's pretty clear, people. Okay, the shadow was rising, but now the fires are in the heavens. Okay.
The fires of the heavens. Okay. Yeah. So you're right. 100%. The roles have been shifting. I mean, Rand is gaining more and more and more power as well, right? He's leading an army right now, right? And so a few books ago, Rand was just a farmer, although he still says he's a farmer. So every now and then, So
right. Yeah. He's the whole thing is, I mean, we're watching. The whole arc is about him becoming the Dragon Reborn, and so we see him changing, and we see some of those Emmons Fielders growing into these different roles. I mean, look what we saw with Perrin in the last book, and him really kind of growing up doing his own thing. Matt is coming into his own. Egwene is doing that. Nynaeve has to kind of take a step back for a second and learn and figure out what her place is in all of this. And then Moraine is doing something that's odd, that's different. We'll get into this batch of chapters here today, which is because when we go to Salidar, they're talking about what to do with Rand and how are they going to approach him? How's the White Tower going to approach him? And how is that different from like Moraine trying to guide him? Swan was always talking about like at least Moraine is there guiding him. Well, now it's almost like she's doing this in a different way. It's almost like to gain his trust and to get close to him and to keep near him, she is having to give in and to just allow him to do his thing, and she's obeying, and she's made these agreements with him. So, we'll just kind of concede the the weaving of the pattern and how it changes. So,
okay, as well, we did sort of our pitch in there first, and there's not really much news left, so I guess we're just diving right in, really.
Yeah,
to this next block of chapters, which is 26 through 35. So chapter 26, Salidara, 27, the practice of diffidence, 28, trapped, 29, memories of Saldaea, 30, a wager, 31, the far snows, 32, a short spear, 33, a question of crimson, 34, a silver arrow, and 35, ripped away. So some big things happen just in general over this big block of chapters, right? Yeah. Rand and Avienda's relationship has drastically changed. I wouldn't say drastically. I think,
there's a big moment.
I don't know. It says a short spear. So was it a big moment or was it a little moment?
Wow.
Okay.
Holy
Holy. I was about to say that their relationship came to its climax, but I thought people might just be like, Matt's just over there.
He's
just making shit.
God dang it. He's totally like Robert Jordan has gotten to him. Matt now is embracing the actual Matt Cawthon of the story. And
right.
Jesus. No, but you're right. I mean, there's some big moments between Rand and Avienda, and how Rand is dealing with the Aiel people, learning new powers. You've got Tom and the Great Game, and you've got some stuff that's going on with him. Salidar is like a whole other thing. Now we're kind of moving into figuring out what happened with the fracturing of the White Tower and what are they doing? What's the blue and green Ajas doing there in Salidar, and how are they going to organize themselves? So and then you still have this whole thing happening in the dream world, conversations to kind of keep the two parties attached to one another, and just complete silence out of the Two Rivers and Emmons Field. Nothing yet. So right. So yeah, cool.
Okay. All right, let's go back to chapter 26, Salidara. For days, Min, Suan, Leanne, and Logain have been traveling south and west of Lugard, Logain's mood had been steadily deteriorating. It seems the depression experienced by gentle men has finally caught up with him. Min still sees the aura of glory around him, though. With Logain not in the mood to do much of anything, Swan has regained the lead over the company. Swan didn't think it was necessary to tell Min where exactly they are going. Leanne has not given up on flirting, and her tactics have succeeded in getting them shelter and lower bills and inns a number of times. It doesn't seem to help Logain, though. Suddenly, the woodlands they have been traveling through gives way to a village of surprising size. Min sees warders and Aes Sedai with images flickering around them constantly. They don't seem to be particularly welcome in this village. Swan leads them to a building that must have once been an inn. The inn shows signs of neglect and is decorated with old and mismatched furniture. 4 Aes Sedai meet them there: Shiriam, Carlinia, Morel, and Anaya. Shiriam recognizes Min and asks what she was thinking bringing Logain here. She also wants to know how Min found them. Min tells them to ask Suan and Leanne. The 4 Aes Sedai seem to think such changes in appearance can be caused by stilling, but still don't trust the 2 women claiming to be Suan and Leanne. They are put through a thorough questioning before the 4 Aes Sedai are satisfied that they are who they claim to be. Swan now tells them she contacted one of her eyes and ears who also worked for the Blues and found out about Sally Dara. Leon adds that even though they can't channel anymore, they can still be used to the tower. Min and Logain are sent away while the others continue their conversation. Min is offered something to eat and several people come to talk to them, but Min still doesn't get the feeling she is welcome there.
Yeah, so this is a cool chapter. Just that we finally get to, there's a lot of these chapters is like traveling. We're trying to get to the next place. And so Salidera is finally a place we get to, and we realize, okay, these are, this is the Blue Aja. The majority of the Blues are here. And Suan did use a former contact in the eyes and ears. And that's important because she's showing these Aes Sedai that she still is relevant and she can, she's still a player in all of this. And that was what she's holding on to. Once you've been stilled or gentled in Logain's case, you're looking at like, what's your motivation? What's going to keep driving you to keep going versus just giving up on life and wanting to just, die or whatever. It's hard to keep going. So they each have got to find their purpose and move forward with that and be relevant. So Suan is doing that. Leanne is doing it in a different way, just by kind of flirting and reconnecting with her past and all that kind of stuff, which is pretty cool. Let me read this to you guys real quick. So, okay. So Min did not understand Solidar at all. Who was she? Who is this, right? But Shiriam and the others nodded at one another. Suan had done something other than tell them how. Min realized she had let them know that she still had access to the eyes and the ears who had served her as Amyrlin. So as a part of that questioning, is she legitimately who she says she is? They must look really different, Sir Matt. Their facial features, that whole agelessness thing, it's gone. So they really don't look the same at all, which is why they can go unrecognized by Gareth Bryn and by these Aes Sedai. And you put them to the question, and she's turning out to be the former Amyrlin, which is cool. They thought she died. They thought she was going to be killed. So.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting too. Also, like this particular group traveling, because with it's like the 3 of them, not including Min, they all started from, like, in a way, the top, right, where we met them in our story, especially Logain. Although by the time we meet Logain, he's already been gentled and everything, but it's like, and so then you have Min, who's sort of like rising, right, in power and discovering things, and you have Logain, who's kind of doing the same, but he, so it's like everybody's still figuring everything out.
Mhm.
As you said. So it is kind of cool to get to see them traveling and just how they have to go about things, right? Without the power of being an Aes Sedai to just walk in and say whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's almost like
Yeah.
we're on the lam, right? It's like this group's on the lam, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. One other cool kind of thing in here, and I thought this was interesting. Sometimes these finer details are things that we missed, and we're taking our big takeaways from these chapters. But Min has a viewing when she comes into Salidar. She sees her viewings just light up, around the warders and the Aes Sedai and things like that. They're encountering someone known as Phaelane, who's kind of mean-spirited and is a little cruel, and we're going to learn more about her later on. But she's looking at some of these other novices, and she notices a snug collar around a woman's neck. And then it suddenly seemed to shatter. She shivered. She did not like viewings concerning or connected to the Shanchen. So right there is a clue of some kind. And the reason she decides not to tell that novice about the viewing is because she didn't believe it could be changed. Well, that seems like a pretty big freaking deal. You know what I mean? Like you have a Shanchen viewing in relationship to this group of Aes Sedai. Like, what does that say? Are people getting leashed and collared around here? Like, that is not a good thing. But Min kind of keeps that to herself because she sees it as inevitable. So, yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next chapter because, as you said, that chapter was more sort of getting there, and then we get there, man, and things kind of break loose, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like, okay, we just arrive in this town. The next thing you know, here we go. Chapter 27, the practice of diffidence. Siuan tries an offensive tactic first. She tells the 6 Aes Sedai that seem to run Salidar that they are rudderless. All the activity in the village is show, and they have no purpose. They are waiting for Eliada to send someone to fetch them. This does not go down well with the Aes Sedai. It is pointed out to them that while they may have been Amerlin and Keeper, they are Aes Sedai no longer. The accusations brought against them were fabricated, and the trial a mockery of justice, but that doesn't mean they can't start again where they left off. Leanne and Siuan try to explain that they can still be useful to the tower. That's what we were doing the same thing last chapter too. They can reroute the reports sent by the eyes and ears of the networks to Salidar. That would be a great advantage. They also have Logain, who will testify that the Red Aja set him up as a false dragon. Doing so, Leon and Siuan reveal a lot about those networks that wasn't known to the Aes Sedai. With this new information returning to the tower has become impossible. Siuan is outraged that they would even consider that, but the tower must be strong at this time. That opportunity has passed, though. Reluctantly, they argue to use Siuan and Leanne's contacts. According to the strategy that Siuan and Leanne worked out earlier, Leanne now puts another idea in the heads of the 6 Aes Sedai, forming a Hall of Sisters and raising their own Amerlin. This would mean the tower would be broken for the world to see, and that they would have no other choice than to strive for Eliada's removal. That idea seems to take hold. Siuan also discusses the whereabouts of Rand. She thinks he is in the Io Waste and that a sister should be sent to him before one of Eliada's can reach him. After some discussion, it is agreed Karuna and Bera should be sent to look for him. Siuan and Leanne are about to be dismissed when Shiriam's warder arrives. Aranvar. All right, he's the warder. He reports some 20 armed men approaching the village. Shiriam tells him they can't be allowed to give their presence away. Aranvar replies that both killing and capturing them would be difficult. They are veterans, and they have even spotted the warders. Shiriam tells him to do what he must to keep their location a secret. But before he can do so, however, Newell, one of Myrell's warders, comes in and reports that the group has halted and only one man is now approaching. He thinks it is Gareth Bryn. He also suggests they may have need for a general soon. Apparently, the warders are better informed of the situation than the Aes Sedai would like. Siuan can't hide her shock at Bryn following them all the way to Salidar. Shuriam notices she knows why Bryn is here. She orders Bryn brought to the inn to talk to the six and see if he can be brought into their service. In the meantime, Swan has no choice but to explain what he is doing in Saladar in the first place.
Yeah, he's freaking looking for her, and trying to get her to keep her promise and all that kind of stuff. The thing is too, I think for Swan, she had to keep going, and this is her drive to matter. At one point, she's like, "Light, please use me, please use my knowledge of the eyes and ears." And even Leanne is saying like, "Yeah, we kind of knew what was going on." Like she had her finger on the pulse of Tar Valon, whereas the other eyes and ears network, they had the pulse on different cities, large cities, and they had eyes and ears in Ebu Dar and different places. And she was like, now they see the benefit of having eyes and ears back in Tar Valon that can tell them what Elida is up to and what they're planning to do there. And, Suan goes on the offensive to kind of to try that tactic. Doesn't work. She gets squashed. But I think she does light a fire under those Aes Sedai to kind of say, yeah, you're sitting here rudderless. To quote her, is what she said, rudderless. You have no direction. And she plants the seed or the idea that you need to create your own group, like sitters, your own hall. And you need to raise up your own Amyrlin. Because right now, to the world, that is the true Amyrlin in the White Tower. They're not going to, until she's deposed, what sway and influence do you have? You are the rebel Aes Sedai. You are not those in power occupying the White Tower. So that goes pretty far. And now you have a general walking in, Gareth Bryn, who they just all said, we could use this guy. So, yeah. You can see the setup
they're trying to split the tower. Mm-hmm. A hall of sisters. Sounds like a hall of justice,
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Well, and you'll need to kind of, the White Tower to be ready. They always talk about for Tarmon Gai'don, like the end of time, the last battle, what needs to happen? Moraine mentions it as well. Like you have to have the White Tower whole, and it is divided. And Min is seeing Shan-Chen leashes around Aes Sedai, and it's not good. So is that part of the reason? Is it like, could they have faced the Shan-Chen more readily if they weren't divided? Is that a fracturing? Is that an issue? Or like, do they need to be united? Do they need to squash these other Ajas? That's all stuff we're kind of considering at this current point in these chapters.
Yeah, I think it should also be noted that Swan, as she's out there, right? She's saying that, hey, there's things that the eyes and ears are picking up that the Aes Sedai don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is good because that does make her relevant. Because you say, okay, if you don't have the power, how do I keep you? Why keep this character around? As an author, you're like, she has to have a purpose. There has to be something she can do. And that's when you get into the power's not everything. Like the Amyrlin knew like information and knowing secrets and who is doing what where. It adds another layer that's important. The Aes Sedai are not all powerful just because they have the one power. It's why I love Robert Jordan's world, because you have like, you could use a Tirang Grial against an Aes Sedai. You can use information against them. You can outmaneuver them. Also, it's mentioned in here a couple times the importance of the oath and the oath rod and not being able to lie and tell, the Aes Sedai can almost they can wordsmith and try to skirt close to the truth without giving you the whole truth, but they really can't truly lie. And it seems like that Suan is able to, she talks about that being a secret that they have about stilling. The Aes Sedai don't like to focus on stilling or give it much attention or research, or it's not something that they want to study because it's so terrible and none of them wants to be close to it or near it. It actually makes them all feel kind of weird and odd, or I don't know what the best word is for that, but they don't feel comfortable looking at these two former Aes Sedai who now can't use the power. It's a fear that they all have. That would be terrible. None of them want to be around it. So we're going to learn a bit more about stilling and being gentle. And actually Logain, right? So Min is still seeing all of this stuff around Logain, but yet his physical appearance, his head is down on the table. He is unmotivated. He's got novices leading him around again. All the energy and fire that he had for the revenge against the Red Aja is starting to dwindle and go away. So what is up with that? Why are we still seeing symbols around Logain, but yet he looks like he's quickly fading? So
yeah. Okay, chapter 28, Trapped. When Garth Bryn enters the village, Newell is waiting for him to take him to the Aes Sedai that will speak to him. He spots Sorenla, and when he is led before the 6 Aes Sedai waiting for him, he sees the other 2 as well. Maybe they are Aes Sedai agents. The 6 Aes Sedai are introduced, and Shiriam explains to him that they will see that the 3 honor their oath, but they can't go with him right at this instant. Bryn says that he'll be happy to wait for the Aes Sedai to finish with them. Shiriam then tells him who they really are. The trap snaps shut. Since Bryn is going to stay with them a while, they would be pleased if he could do them a favor. The chances of his men getting away are non-existent with so many warders around. Bryn decides to state his conditions. It is obvious to him that the tower has split and that this group of Aes Sedai is vulnerable, so close to Amadisia. If they need him, they plan on raising an army and removing Eliada from power. He will recruit and lead their army under 3 conditions. First, he recruits, decides on promotions, and leads the army. Second, they will heed him when he says something can't be done. Third, they will see it through to the end. If they decide to accept Eliada for all, it will cost him his head. While the Aes Sedai debate his terms, Siuan wants to know what possessed him to follow them. It can't be for a barn. He replies it was for an oath, but to himself. He admits it's her blue eyes that drew him here. Siuan is not pleased, and she gives him the rough side of her tongue. They argue a bit about an incident at the court in Camelin, the first and only time they met before Kor Springs. The Aes Sedai return and tell him they accept his conditions and pledge themselves to follow them without reservations. Garth Bryn kneels and vows to serve them. And then it shifts to Min's point of view, but I think we can just talk about this first. So yeah, we're gonna raise an army. We're gonna take on Eliada.
Right. Yeah. Yes. And he's the guy to do it. He is he is a great leader, a great military mind, one of the greatest, actually. And remember back in Camelin, it's sort of Lord Gabriel's interference that sends Gareth Bryn away. Like when Queen Morghese has sort of woken up from this influence and she's trying to escape. She's like, why? Why is he away from me? Why are all of her allies suddenly away from her? And so he's one of those. And that's why Siuan came across him back at his old estate. So yeah, he's now important to them. He needs to stick around. Oath breaking is a big deal. Siuan swore that oath that she knew would be such a binding oath that he would give her that freedom that she needed to maybe move about freely and escape. And now he's just here to kind of, is it for the oath or is it for those eyes, Matt? I don't know, but he's definitely interested.
Hey.
Can blue eyes do that?
Interested, yeah. I guess, man. Yeah.
One more quick thing too. So they talk about the I think it's Murundi, the border dispute between Camelin and Andor and Murundi. And like when she, as the Amarlin seat, showed up one time and openly kind of put Gareth Bryn in his place, and she thinks like, oh, you're enjoying this now because I'm the Amarlin seat, and this is all just to get back at me for that little incident in front of the court where I had to kind of, put him in his place, if you will, or they had an argument, right? And she wanted to withdraw the Andor troops away from that border because she's worried about this young leader. Like, she's trying to move all these pieces to get the right leaders in the right places to get everyone ready for what could be a last battle or just to bring peace or prosperity. And it ends up that really, I think that young leader ends up getting killed. He died. A month after I left Camelin, she muttered, some Andorran farmer put an arrow through him on a sheep raid. He could not help laughing. It was the farmers you should have made kneel, not me. Well, you no longer need concern yourself with such things. That was certainly true. Whatever use the Aes Sedai had for her, they would never let her near power or decisions again now. He felt pity for her. But he's really not after her. He's not trying to do any of this to like put her down or whatever. He really is like, I mean, he mentions the blue eyes and he's attracted to her in some way. And it's not even just the oath. Like, it's all about her, even though like Leanne is maybe a little bit more beautiful and seductive and trying to use, I mean, she tried to, basically get them out of their sentence earlier with Gareth Bryn when she tried to present herself to him. And he's like, nah, it's Suan for me. He's like looking at her like that's more catching my eye. And here he is. But I thought it was interesting that even though the Amerlin seat is trying to move things and order people about, they don't always get it right. The Aes Sedai, it's just another way to show you that the Aes Sedai are not all powerful and all knowing, and some random arrow from some Andorran farmer can literally put an end to the Amerlin seat's plans. That was kind of interesting to me. So
yeah. All right. Next point of view is Min. So same chapter, but it shifts. So after seeing Garth Bryn, Min suspects she will be held to her oath very soon. Min tells Logain to stay where he is while she goes to find out what is going on. She is sent right back to him by Suan, though. Logain feels Suan sold him to the Aes Sedai. Apparently, he is still well aware of what goes on around him. Then Suan appears again, carrying a large pile of laundry. She's in a bad mood, indeed, and hands the laundry to Min, since she is now Garth Bryn's serving girl. Min tells Suan she had a viewing when Garth Bryn came in. If she wants to live, she'll have to stay very close to him. Suan isn't sure dying would be worse. She tells Min to get on with the laundry.
Yeah, she's got to clean his boots, and she's passing it off to Min. Poor Min, come on now. That's not right.
I love all these little. I will say I do a lot. We always, except for like those. It was like, was it The Dragon Reborn or Shadow Rising, where I think it was the Dragon Reborn where we started with like a huge Min chapter. But outside of that, Min's points of views are always like so small, but it's always like, hey, I just had this vision that's gonna be super important later and come true. And it's just interesting that's the way that Robert Jordan decides to use her. Is it's like. Mm-hmm. Anytime you get to a Min point of view, it's like you really got to pay attention because something's like it's super important.
Yeah, and actually, so Min's viewings, I've been trying more so to make an effort to point them out. And so here's one, right? The quote from Min's viewing is that when Bryn came in, I had a viewing, and you mentioned this. It's this aura, right? A bull ripping roses from around its neck, and none of that really mattered except the aura. I didn't even really understand that, but more than anything else, if you want to stay alive, you had better stay close to him. All I know is this: if he stays close to you, you live. If he gets too far away for too long, you're going to die, both of you. I don't know why I should have seen anything about you in his aura, but you seemed like part of it. So they seem connected in some way. Their fates are interwoven now, and that's something like to help us understand why would Suan want to keep close to this guy. And I mean, what's the point? Is it Min's viewing? Does she grow? Is there a respect that's going to grow between them? Is it just because of duty and the oath, or is it something else? And all kind of cool things to consider.
Mm-hmm. Okay. As 29 Memories of Saldaea. So now we're shifting gears here, and we're going to be with Kadir, right?
Yeah.
So Kadir is in his wagon thinking about the note he found slipped under his door. You are not alone among strangers. A way has been chosen. Mm-hmm. There were dark friends among the Aiel. They were among every people, but he doesn't particularly want to meet them. Chosen, could that indicate some other chosen, right? That could be interested in him. This could be very dangerous, Kadir thinks, back to his childhood in Saldaea and his sister who taught him his first letters and numbers. Isindre comes in dressed in a heavy robe. Amused, Kadir suggests she take it off, but she refuses. He asks her if she has anything to report on Rand or Natail. She tells him Natail won't tell her anything, and she can't get near Rand. When Kadir presses her to try harder, she shows him what the maidens did to her. They shaved her head and flogged her with nettles. The maidens have broken her. Next time, they promised her she would be given to Avienda. She has been betting Rand since Rudion, she tells Kadir. The mere mentioning of her is enough to make her flinch. Kadir sees she will be of no further use to him. He tells her to keep an eye on Natail, and at least, and when she is about to leave, he strangles her. Like always, when he strangles a woman, he thinks of his sister. He kills her after she found out what he was. Still thinking of his sister, he starts to dispose of the body. Yeah, Kadir. Not to be trusted or trifled with.
No, dude. Yeah. The crazy thing is you get like a perspective of a dark friend, right? I mean, it's said like he's been visited by Lanfear. Like he knows,
right.
According to him, Natal, Jason Natal, the Gleeman, is what he knew of him was that he was a great dark friend, that he was great among the dark friends. He doesn't know anything else about him because he was in a disguise and he's pretending to be a Gleeman and things, but he knew not to mess with that guy. And then he's got, it's hinted at that one of his other companions was found, possibly is missing and is probably found, would be found dead. And there's some irony behind that and Lanfear connection. But the big takeaway is that, yeah, he is he's dark friend. And he's freaking right in there with like Rand, and he's right in the midst of all this. And so, are there other dark friends around? Like, what's going on, man? But and just the fact that he's this close. I mean, imagine how it's almost like he does share a little bit about how scary it is to be in and around the Chosen, to be around the Forsaken, and what it's like to be spoken to by them and to follow their orders. And he's sweating. He's got scars on his chest from his encounter with Lanfear. And yeah, he's really got a lot on his mind here. And also the Aiel, he makes a point that really, because he's a peddler, he's allowed to kind of move through the Aiel waste, but otherwise he'd been killed anyway. Like, I mean, they used to give passage to the Kyrianan because of the water, bond they had, sharing water and resources back in the day. King Layman cuts the tree down. No more Kyrianan can cross. Now only peddlers and the tinkers, even though they try to avoid the tinkers, but because he's a peddler, he can move across the Aiel waste, gets with them, is moving back, but he's actually secretly a dark friend. So he's right. I mean, these people will. If they
Who else is secretly a dark friend? That's the
question.
That's the question. It seems. Does it seem like being a dark friend is worth it?
No. I
mean, every time we get the perspective of someone who is, which right here is like a sort of a new perspective of somebody who is, it always just seems like, man, things are just bad. It doesn't even seem like you get anything out of it unless you're like, Lanfear or something. I mean, that's, you're one of the Forsaken, but like the dark friends, it seems like, God, you're just like, the only thing it seems like once you get in that, like you're just like trying to stay alive, let alone like have power or anything like that.
Yeah. I mean, there's like a promise, to it. And I think, gosh, before you have the Chosen running around, like you think back before the story starts, like Dark Friends, it might have been cool. And you might've thought you had some influence and power or something, but now you got you got the Chosen out here, buddy. I mean, you got the big dogs running around. And once you realize that, you're like, okay, this is not a game anymore. This is not like, This is not fun. So I don't know. But also I would say that the Forsaken are very much persuasive. And if you have made an oath prior to them escaping their prison, they are going to keep you to that oath to the Dark One, and you're going to serve them. And so a lot of the servitude even comes, you're being forced. I mean, you saw the Dark Friend Social where you're summoned to that. You better freaking show up. I mean, that's just all there is to it. Now, what I love about Inktar, and I bring him up even a couple books later, is I love when Rand says, I think all you have to do is to choose not to be a dark. It's just to choose the light, to choose not to serve the dark anymore. That's it, Inktar. You just have to choose it. And one more time, he raises his sword, and for House Shinoa, for the light, he fights once again. So yeah. Anyway, but
okay, all right, so good. Okay, chapter 30 here. A wager. Rand is looking at the river flowing through the town of Ironrod to get away from Moraine's relentless lessons. Last night, he dismissed her. She actually begged to be allowed to stay. Sulun, how do you spell that name? Sulun?
Yeah, Sulun.
Yeah,
yep.
Sulun and his usual guard of maidens is with him. He asks why he hasn't seen Analia and Adolin around for a while, when Sulin replies he will see them back when they have stopped playing with dolls. A group of riders approaches, escorted by Aiel. The riders are a group of Tyrians and from Kyrian. Rand is interested to hear what they can tell him. The Tyrians are led by Astan and Adoran, young nobles Rand remembers from Tyr. The Kyrianen are led by Macerin and Dakarian. They want to know if Rand sent the Aiel against Kyrian. Rand explains that the Shido are his enemies and that he intends to save the city. Ruark tells Rand the city still held a few days ago. These men have been sent to get help. They say that the city can hold out for another 7 or 8 days. The conditions in Kyrian are bad. The city has been flooded with refugees. The Shido drove into them. The foregate burnt to the ground, and the food is almost gone. Rand sends Marison back to Kyrian to tell the defenders he is on his way. Adorian will go with them and places a bet on them making it to Kyrian in 7 days. Rand doesn't have the amount he wants to put on it, but Sulin says he has it and will meet the bet. After that, they ride for Kyrian. Ruark now wants to ask Astan about the conditions in Kyrian. Rand stresses he should limit himself to asking. They are allies now, after all. Ruark also suggests sending out scouts to see how the situation is. Then Rand retires for the night. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Because I listened to the audiobook and then I come back and I read the thing. Some of these names, when you're like, when you're hearing it, you're like, oh, okay, whatever. And then you have to go to read it and you're like, wait, what was that name again? And it's, yeah.
Well, I was actually about to say, as you were reading that, I'm like, these are a couple guys that
I was like,
smaller nobles. Yeah.
They show up like one time.
Well, and it's like Adolin and Sulin. I always forget, like, oh yeah, like, when you read it, you're like, oh yeah, it's Sulin. And I've heard it, just like you, I only listen to the audiobook, and I'm really good at just retaining a lot of it in my mind, and I'm used to listening to it. But when it comes to actually reading, it's just like the first time you read, even the mate, like Nynaeve. I've had someone try to read Nynaeve's name to me. It's like, it's hilarious.
Because I've heard it like Nynaeve, like Nine.
Birgitta, Birgit.
Well, especially because you're reading it and it's like, I'm reading it and it's like, okay, last night Rand did this with this and this, and then like it's just all these normal words, and then you get to like Adorion, and it's like, who is that? And so. Yeah,
right. So like, and even like Couladin's name, right? So you look at Couladin,
right?
And like OU. Normally, like I could say Cowladin. I've heard people say owl, like the owl. Use the OU. It's weird. But anyways, my point with this is I don't really, really this is just you get an idea of the state of the city, that the Shido are there, and then I know that these nobles, and they're going to come up more often, and as we get closer to Kyrian, we'll learn more about the dynamics of Tyr and these lords, and like the Tyrans and how they work with the Kyrianans and the whole business there. So I don't even recall these guys as well as I should, and so I was going to say don't worry too much about them, although the dynamics are important. They're just not real important right now. It's more just that we got to get to the city, help them, and then also explain to the Aiel, the conditions of taking Kyrian, what does that mean? And that these are our allies and they're not our enemy. even though these are the Kyrianen who, as I just said, broke the oath and stuff. Like these, they're the tree killers and stuff. And Moraine is actually one of them. So, but she's an Aes Sedai, so that trumps the fact that she's from that city and she's one of their people. So yeah, that's all we really have from this small chapter, is just sort of the setup to the far snows. The next chapter.
Okay. All right. Okay. Things about to change here. Okay. So the Far Snows, which is chapter 31, Rand passes through the town of Ironrod on his way to the building where there's a real bed. The first one he's seen since entering the Waste. The town didn't fall to the Shido, but was abandoned before that. Several battles took place between the various Kyrianen factions fighting for the Sun Throne. Most of the buildings have been damaged. Rand manages to keep the maidens out of the building he picked out, but of course, that doesn't include Aviendha. When he enters his room, he finds her naked in front of the washstand. Embarrassed, Aviendha panics. She wants to get as far away from him as possible. She channels, opens a gateway, and runs naked. Runs naked as the day she was born into what seems to be a fierce blizzard. Rand realizes she will die from exposure if he doesn't do something. Without thinking, he channels to keep the gateway open, grabs all the clothes and blankets he can, and follows her. Aviendha keeps running from him, and Rand follows. Channeling a path through the snow, he slowly gains on her. Then suddenly she disappears. When Rand catches up, he sees she fell through snow-covered ice into cold water. He puts down the blankets and pulls her out. She's suffering from hypothermia, and Rand uses the power to make a snow shelter for them. He heats the air inside and puts Aviendha in the blankets that he brought. Realizing it isn't enough to warm her up, he takes off his wet clothes and crawls in beside her. He talks to her about his plans for Kyrian to keep his mind away from the incident, though that keeps popping up. When Aviendha regains consciousness, she tells Rand that she will stop running. The rings do not lie. After that, they make love. Hours later, Aviendha is getting dressed and marvels at the snow. She is.
Is that a quote?
That's what it says. I'm just
reading. All right, you just read it. All right.
Well, the next chapter, all right, we can stop. Okay. Hours later, Aviendha is getting dressed and marvels at the snow. She has never seen it before. Rand tells her they can get married as soon as they get back. What follows is a debate on different customs in the Two Rivers and the Aya Waste, but Aviendha will stick to hers. She will ask the man she wants to marry, and marrying Rand is out of the question. What happened will not happen again. Aviendha has toe towards Elaine. It is time they focused on getting back to Kyrian.
Well, I'll tell you right now, Aviendha has... She showed more than a toe to Rand. Let me tell you right now.
Jesus Christ.
Dude, okay. I was thinking about this because this is one of those chapters where, like, you know, you kind of knew in the beginning of this that there was some, you know, you'd heard from your brother, different people about the women around Rand, and even just some of the fun aspects of, like, the relationship between these you know.
Yeah. Well, Aviendha keeps showing up in Min's. Aviendha keeps showing up in Min.
Yeah.
There, I mean, you could cut the tension, you know, with a knife.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
sure.
It's been there the whole time.
Actually, yeah. It's, yes, you could. You might need a hair and mark blade to do it, but yeah, yeah, for sure. So I thought, I mean, I was going to joke with you a little bit about, like, you know, Matt knows, living out in Portland, Oregon, like they do this all the time, run naked through, you know, on beaches. And
hey man, it's
a common,
it's a weird city.
I'd be arrested around Ohio for doing that. I'm not allowed to do that. Okay. So you talk about different customs, the Two Rivers versus the Waste. It's different. So, yeah. Let's see.
Hours later.
Yeah. Hours later. That's crazy. So let me read some of this real quick, okay? Because this is just, let me see. So, okay. This part is just kind of, you know, this is what happened. You know, I'm just reading what Robert Jordan put in front of us. Right. So he froze as soon as he opened the door to his bedchamber. Aviendha had not chosen to remain with the tents. She stood before the washstand with its mismatched cracked bowl and pitcher, a cloth in one hand and a bar of yellow soap in the other. Do we have to describe the color of the soap? I guess so, yes. She had no clothes on. She seemed stunned as he and incapable of moving. She stopped to swallow, big green eyes locked on his face. I could not make a sweat tent here in this town, so I thought I would try your way of. She was hard muscle and soft curves. She glistened damply from head to feet. He had never imagined that her legs were so long. I thought you would remain longer at the bridge. Her voice rises in pitch. I did not arrange for you to see me. I must get away. Boom, she's gone. And how did she do what she did here, right? She ran into a gateway, is what it's called. She ran into this shimmering gateway, and she's
channels.
Away. Yeah, she channels, right? Yeah, uses the power, and she gets away, but she goes to the far snows. It's snowing. You know what I mean? We're going to talk a little bit about where she went and what this power is and how she did this. But at the start of the podcast, I read the quote where he's like, his hand is dragging through the icy water, and he actually finally gets a hold of her, like her hair, with frozen hair, and he's like pulling. I mean, he saves her life, like pulls her out of this icy kind of, pond or lake or whatever. Yeah. So just crazy, man. It's a crazy moment. And then, so what she says that's interesting is I will not run anymore. What that the rings do not lie. That Rudion, when she went to Rudion, it must have told her something that she was running from, that she was trying to get away from. And, I mean, she did try to run. She made a gateway and tried to get away, but he followed her. And so they make love. So it is what it is.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Chapter 32, A Short Spear. Rand uses the
oh God.
Here we go. Rand uses literally. All right, here we go. Oh my God, I can't even read the opening thing here. Rand uses the one power to create an exit from the shelter. When he pokes his head out, he sees two people on a strange flying beast passing over them. Apparently, their arrival didn't go unnoticed. Avienda and Rand make their way to the gateway, trying not to be seen. When they get there, they find their way is blocked by a group of about 20 people. Two of them wear collars around their necks, connected to bracelets worn by two other women. Rand knows now where he is. The women are Damane. They are somewhere on the Shanchan continent. He asks Avienda if she can shield the Damane. He will bind the others. Dividing flows so many ways will be a challenge, but he thinks he can do it. Their channeling works, and Rand and Avienda make their way to the gateway. Rand can see another weave he didn't put there. Osmodian or one of the other Forsaken, he's asking. Rand wants to release the Damane, but he can't touch the collars himself. He asks Avienda to look at them. One of the Shanchan, Lady Morsa, recognizes Rand. She was at Falme. Rand warned her not to give him trouble, or he will repeat that here. One of the other Shanchan, a seeker of truth named Jane London, has some questions about the Falme Lady Morsa, would rather not answer. It looks like the seeker for truth is not going to let her get away, though. Avienda has no luck releasing the Damane, and Rand sees the gateway getting smaller. They will have to leave now. Releasing the flows holding the Shanchan, Rand and Avienda jump through the gateway. Before it snaps shut, a spear follows through and is cut clean in half by the gateway. Osmodian is waiting for them in Rand's room. Rand immediately shields him. After Avienda leaves, he comments on the strange scepter Rand is holding. Rand looks at the spear and decides to keep it to remind him that there are more enemies than the ones he can see. He demands to know how Osmodian hid the gateway and why he hasn't mentioned it before. Osmodian protests that Rand always has so many questions that he can hardly bring anything else up. Rand tells him to talk of two things. Rand hasn't asked about every lesson. Rand asks how he can slice through a woman's weave, as he has seen Lanfear do before. The Forsaken has until dawn to teach him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the coolest part, obviously we traveled very far away. We have Damani, the Shanchan there. So they're somehow on, like they determined they're on that continent, or they're in the Shan Empire, and they've got a flying weird beast and Damani and all this stuff. A seeker for truth. The spear, the spear, right, that comes through the gateway. Yeah, cut in half. The big deal here is that Osmodian seems to be hiding some. Is he hiding, or has he just not had a chance to teach Rand this stuff? But he knows about gateways. He knew how to hide this one. It's because he sees the weaves and he sees the power being used, Saidin, that he's able to find the gateway again. So he's like, straight up, I will run you through with the spear if you don't tell me everything you know. And then he remembers back to Lanfear slicing through his sort of weaving. And he's like, so a woman can cut through a man's weaving. Like, you can somehow see it or counter it. How do you do that? And he basically says, it's difficult, Lord Dragon. Like, you need a woman to practice against. And that's where he's like, no, you're going to tell me. You're going to, in theory or something, even if we don't have a woman to practice against, you are telling me now because I need to know. So that's my big takeaway from that is Osmodian needs to step up as a teacher. So.
Yeah, it is. This is also why you need a map, right? I tell everyone in this series, man, you should get a map out because it's like, hold on a second. We just went from the Aiel Waste, which if you're looking at the map, right, is completely is about as far east as you can get. Okay. We just showed up in the Shan continent, which is about as west as you can get on the map.
Yeah. Because Avienda, her only thought was as far away as I can. So as far as away as you can get is the opposite side of the world. You know what I mean?
Right.
To get that, when her mind was that, when she thought that, and then she created a gateway, it takes her to the furthest point from where she's at, which is the other side of the world, which I think is kind of cool. That's what happens. So, yeah, new powers, leveling up, new relationship gains. I mean, lots going on. A lot going on here in these batch of chapters. I think we got 2 more. I think, right?
Yep. Yeah. Here we go. Chapter 33, a question of crimson. So now we're back with Nynaeve and Tom and sort of that group.
Yeah.
So Tom is practicing throwing knives at Nynaeve. Not that she actually intends to do this before an audience, but Luca insisted they practice. If Tom so much as nicks her, she will have his hide. Luca's insistence on wearing an indecent red dress does nothing to improve her mood either. Luca wants to know what happened to her eye, but Nynaeve is not to about discuss that incident with him. After she manages to get rid of Luca, Julian reports that he saw Galad in Samara, just what they needed. As if their own situation isn't bad enough, Elaine reports on the fighting in Kyrian last night. She is also worried about Rand. It appears he grows harder with each passing day. At least she gave up on flirting with Tom. Not that their new father-daughter behavior is much better. Jeez, what is going on with this group? It's like crazy. On her way back to the wagons, Nynaeve meets Aludra. The Illuminators insist she takes another box of fire sticks. Nynaeve isn't sure they won't spontaneously combust, but she takes them anyway. When she reaches the wagon, Elaine wants to know what happened to her eye. She tells Elaine a version of how she got into a fight with Carandon after trying to pry information about the Damani out of her. To change the subject, Nynaeve wants to know why Elaine has been looking at the Adam in their possession. Elaine tells her she thinks she can make one. Why anyone would want to is beyond Nynaeve, though. And Adam is a filthy thing in her opinion. Elaine points out that if she can, she'll be the first to make a Terrion Grial in thousands of years. Nynaeve changes the subject again and tells her Julian saw Galad in Samara. They are caught between the White Cloaks and the mobs of the Prophet, with a Forsaken hunting them. Nynaeve needs to remember that the rebel Aes Sedai are gathering, and they need to get away from the menagerie.
Yeah. So, here's something interesting, right? So as we kind of laugh at the Tom Elaine's situation, and Elaine totally tries to turn this back on Nynaeve by saying, okay, so she says, yesterday Nynaeve had congratulated the girl on coming to her senses, and Elaine had coolly replied, are you trying to find out if I will stand in your way with Tom, Nynaeve? Like, as if Nynaeve wanted to get with Tom, you know? He's rather old for you, and I did think you had planted your affections elsewhere. But you are old enough to make your own decisions. I'm fond of Tom, as I think of him as I think he is of me. I look on him like a second father. If you want to flirt with him, you have my permission. But I really did think you were more constant. It's such like it's a weird kind of, I don't know, petty thing. It's just like, yeah, I know I got kind of caught with my hand in Tom's cookie jar, but I, you know, but now I'm going to accuse you of trying to get in the same cookie jar. And it's like, what? Come on. This is just great. That there is some craziness among these two and this whole Tom fascination. And then you've got Luca, who's running this menagerie, this circus, and he just wants it to be this big, flamboyant type of thing, spectacle, and they're trying to hide in and among it. And they're realizing, okay, shoot, there's this guy called the Prophet in Samar. The White Cloaks are moving in there too, and you've got Galad there. We're trying to avoid all of that drama and stuff. We're trying to get away from one of the Forsaken and just get back to the rebel Aes Sedai. So they've got like a lot going on around them that they're trying to go stealthily through all of this, do their time with Luca, and then make a run for the rebels. But yeah, that's kind of the big what's going on with them, I guess. So
yeah, the Tom fascination is weird, and it's a cool little interesting dynamic. But you know, it's like sometimes it's like, Robert Jordan, what are we doing, man? You know, it's like he weaves in some of this stuff. It's just like, it feels just ridiculous sometimes.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. It's just like he just sort of lets it all run wild. It's a fantasy. It's a high fantasy. Just, you know, what's crazy is you and I read Game of Thrones, and the stuff that goes on there is far more wild and outlandish, but it gets so normalized so quick.
Way more ridiculous.
Yeah, and that we read this and we're like, what? Really? And then you've got characters pointing out the obvious. He's a bit too old for you, but you can do what you want. It's like, Elaine, you're younger than Nynaeve, and Nynaeve was congratulating on you and making the right decision.
And Tom hooked up with your mom. I mean, and you're like, I mean, what kind of Jerry Springer, you know, thing is she got going on? I mean,
do you think Robert Jordan watched Jerry Springer or anything either?
Maybe, man.
I just think at one point somebody asked him about the relationships and about like even Rand and some of the girls and some of the stuff with Tom. And it's in an interview somewhere, and he was just sort of like, I just think it's funny. I just think it's fun. I think it's interesting, and it makes you kind of like, puts you in a weird spot where you're like, not so sure about that, but it's just, that was him. He's the author of our series, and, you know, he puts it in there for a bit of comedy, a bit of sort of like awkwardness, and
it is sort of it does come across as like the comedic relief. A lot of the comedic relief in this series is sort of like to do with the relationships.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's this like
because it's like there is this level of seriousness too. But then sometimes I will say it can come across as kind of weird, right? Because in some situations I feel like I like it, and others it's just kind of awkward because like I think back about like, remember when Rand I think it's at the beginning of The Dragon Reborn, when he's in Tyr and he's got God, what's the crystal sword? How am I just
Kalendor. You asked me too fast. Yeah.
Kalendor. Yeah. I have Coolandin in my mind, and I'm like, it's not cool. It's Kalendor. There we go. Yeah. Right. He's got Kalendor, the whole deal, right? And remember when it's like Rand has just been proclaimed like the Dragon Reborn. There's like banners flying and all this stuff. It's like very serious. And then Elaine sends Egwene in to sort of like test him and all this stuff, and it's like suddenly we go back to like Rand's like in the Two Rivers, you know what I mean? And it's just weird. It's just sometimes it's comedy, but it's just so it seems like such a dramatic shift in character like so quickly that you're kind of like, what? It just kind of feels sometimes a little awkward.
Yeah,
but it is always like a fresh reminder, like, and everything is not always as serious.
Well, that they're younger too. So like you go from these characters who grow up super fast, and you advance their character development super quick. You know, Rand's the Dragon Reborn, but yet he's still, that boyish glint or whatever is still there, and him sneaking kisses in with Elaine and Tyr is happening, and then this whole bit with Avienda, the awkwardness of like walking in on, you know, someone who's naked,
right.
like how do you deal with that? How does the Dragon Reborn, you know, how do you react when the Dragon Reborn walks in on you naked? What do you do? Well, I guess you create a gateway and you run away. You know, like that's the kind of Robert Jordan wants to put these epic hero fantasy-like figures into kind of funny, awkward situations and say, how do they respond? And it's normally somewhat childish, and like Elaine is an epic hero in the story, and she's kind of, you know, yeah.
Right. And not to get too far away from the books, but just in terms of their personalities, right? And you have these sort of moments. Do you think the TV show is going to go a little more on the side of them not growing up as fast, or do you think they have to sort of, that dynamic seems like that was something that would be changed in the show.
Yeah, but it would be really funny. It would be really interesting if they did capture some of that, like Rand's an epic hero, but still is awkward around girls, you know, type of feel for the comedy aspect of it. But that's hard to do. That, I think, I don't know how you do that in a TV show. It would be, you could do it. It's just like, yeah, I don't know. Cause I guess like when I watch Elaine, when I read Elaine and Nynaeve and I see them trying to like, you know, I don't know how to put this. It's like visually, it's almost like they stand up straight and they're like, no, I'm in charge, you know, and I'm going to do this thing until they do something embarrassing. And then the other one calls them out for it. And then they kind of like hunch back down like, oh yeah, okay, well, that was embarrassing. And then I don't know, like it's a weird back and forth between that type of behavior. It's hard to explain, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's cool.
All right. Well, let's move on here. So 34 here, which is a silver arrow. It is Elaine's turn to cook that night. So Julian and Tom join them for dinner. They don't seem to appreciate Nynaeve's cooking. I will say really quick, the text around some of that is pretty funny because she sort of noticed like, hey, I don't eat as much, you know, when Nynaeve cooks.
Yeah.
You know, like they tend not to eat as much. And so it's just that's kind of funny. Anyway, so Luca joins them too, like most nights. He tries to flirt with Nynaeve, but she puts him off. After dinner, they leave the dishes to the men and retire to another expedition into Teleron, Riyadh. Before they go to sleep, Elaine tells Nynaeve she shouldn't encourage Luca. Nynaeve protests she is only holding her temper, but Elaine seems to think that is like trying to keep the sun from rising every morning. It is Elaine's turn to visit the world of dreams, but Nynaeve insists that she go. She has questions for Brigitte. Reluctantly, Elaine agrees, but she wants Nynaeve to ask Brigitte again to share the secret with Egwene. When Nynaeve meets Brigitte in the world of dreams, the hero of the Horn, let's go, tells her that she has found Moghedien. She can take Nynaeve for a brief look, but she has to promise not to do anything. 5 Forsaken are gathered, and that is too much for Nynaeve to take on. Nynaeve agrees, and the next moment she is spying on Grendel, Ravin, Lanfear, Moghedien, and Samael. Samael seems worried that he will be at his throat. There's quotation marks around the he. There is a mention of a teacher, too. Most of it seems sort of quabbling. Brigitte then takes them away again. Brigitte and Nynaeve are still discussing what they saw when Moghedien shows up. She throws Brigitte at the reflection of Nynaeve's wagon and knocks her out. Nynaeve finds she is shielded by the Forsaken. She tries to make Moghedien so angry she will kill her quickly, but Moghedien seems to have other plans. Behind her, the Brigitte stirs. Nynaeve keeps Moghedien talking while Brigitte takes aim. She hits the Forsaken with one of her silver arrows, but misses the heart. A wounded Moghedien flees, and Nynaeve wakes up crying and thinks she has killed Brigitte Silverbow.
Yeah.
Or Brigitte Silverbow.
Yeah.
Or Brigitte, or how, you know, however you want to, or your preferred pronunciation of it is.
Yeah. So It's this sucks, right? I mean, for Nynaeve at first, she's like, oh man, like this is a big mess up, a big misstep where she's been caught. They've been warned so much about the dream world and what can happen here, and so it's just kind of terrible that this is she has to kind of deal with her decision making and this whole bit with Mogideon. You know, she had originally defeated Mogideon, so she's thinking, I can take her. You know, I can do this. But this is where Mogideon is strong. She understands this world and she knows what she's doing here. And so Brigida Silverbow is able to kind of, you know, rescue her from Mogideon's weaves and she binds her. You know, and before that too, you get some sort of understanding that Lanfear has shared that Rand has a teacher, that where he's traveling, Samael is worried about who's going to be coming after him. Has he put himself out too far against Rand? And is he being used by the other Forsaken? Are they using him to bait Rand into an attack and weaken him so they can strike? I mean, that's the kind of scheming you're seeing from Grendel, Ravine, Lanfear, and Samael, which is kind of cool. You get it in like little fractured kind of bits and pieces, but you can kind of piece together that that's what they're talking about. So
right. And what happens if you die in Teleron Riyadh?
I think you're dead.
To ask it, are you dead?
I think so.
Is it different? Because can't you die in the dream world and not die in the regular world? Because didn't Perrin kill, or no, he injured him.
Yeah. Injured
Slayer in the dream world.
Right. And so in this, I mean, that's the big worry, is that the wise ones are kind of like, what happens here affects the living body. Like you are attached, you know, to it. So I think it's that you die. There's other ways to enter the dream world too. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I think so. Yeah.
It's like a whole big deal. And then Brigitte Silverbow is also like a hero of the Horn.
Yeah, so that's different. That's why.
What happens if you die? It's also its own thing too.
It's its own thing because she's bound. Yeah, she's bound to the pattern. She's someone who can be summoned.
So if you could be summoned at any time, like you're safe. So even if if you die as a hero of the Horn when you get called into a battle, are you still basically like?
Yeah.
You know, are you still bound to the Horn? Or
You'll come back again, baby.
No longer a hero of the Horn.
I think so. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I don't know that they actually really...
Is it never explicitly stated?
Yeah, I don't know if they cover the actual details of that, but I'm guessing... Yeah. Also, the heroes, too, it's hinted at that they've lived multiple lives and that they're spun back out. It's like she talks about Gai'don, you know, being born, and then how she'll find him, and these two lovers keep finding... Because... in this chapter, Nynaeve, I think, shows up and she's thinking about Lan and she's wearing some revealing clothing. And Brigitte is sort of like, I do the same thing, you know, for my guy. Yeah. You know, like, why change? You look good. So, yeah, she talks about their lives and them being kind of interwoven. So there's that, too, that they also are kind of, and that's what Tom in the first book talks about, the dead living again and coming back and being reborn. So there's that too.
Okay.
Yeah. And you throw all that in, you throw that all into the dream world, and it's like, wow, cheesy cow. There's so many rules and different things and stuff. So I'll have to go do a little bit more research on that and think about it. But I think, if you die in the dream world, I'm pretty sure you're not waking up.
Dead. So
you're not waking up in the other. Yeah.
So it's not like you can exist in both. It's not like you can die in the regular world and then still exist in the dream world.
Yeah, I think your spirit, your essence or whatever is in the dream world, and then that body is there waiting for it to return. It's still linked. They're still linked, but it's not, once you die there, it can't return. The link is gone. You can't really come back. Watch me be completely wrong about this whole thing, but I thought that's the way I understood it.
Right.
But, yeah.
It's not like Star Wars where you can live on through the Force.
Yeah, Force Ghost. Although, you know, what's funny is, well, the wolves are different, right? So Hopper, you know, Hopper's killed.
Right.
Hopper's killed, and then the wolves, they live on in the dream world, you know, and that kind of cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, we'll just have to keep plugging along, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay, so this chapter also includes a bit from Leandrin's point of view. So remember, so a wounded and bleeding Mogedion comes running out of her bedroom. She demands Chesmal, who has some abilities in the field that heals her. Chesmal does as the usual healing and leaves the Forsaken weakened. Leandrin sees her chance and tries to strike at the Forsaken, but before she can do any damage, Mogedion has her shielded and pinned to the wall. She will live, but her punishment is going to be horrible. Neither Chesmal nor Tamal show any compassion. Mogedion tells them she found out about that Nynaeve and Elaine are with a menagerie. She is heading for Samara, where a number of them are gathering to look for them, and gives the Black Sisters orders to follow as soon as they have seen to Leandrin. After the Forsaken leaves, Leandrin starts screaming before her sisters even begin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, stupid. Leandrin tries. I mean, she thought she was weak. She thought she could, this is a chance to get up over, to rise in power and to take on one of the Forsaken when she's wounded, and did not work. So she is shielded and tortured. She is now going to live, but her punishment is pretty severe. And the other sisters kind of are like, come on, we've tried different things. People have been unsuccessful. This woman clearly has a lot of power, and we are nothing compared to her. So, but now we do know that Mogedion is on the trail and knows the menagerie is where they're at, and is sending the Black Aja on ahead to track them down. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we don't have any other ravens or pigeons, I should say, as we do have one chapter left. Are we going to save that for extended, or do we want to do something else for extended?
Actually, we can save this one because it's been a good bit, and we can talk a little bit more about, maybe I'll do a little bit of research on the Dream World, and we can talk more about that and just some of the dynamics of it and how it fits into, this whole conversation with Mogedion, the pattern, and even go back and touch on some of what the Forsaken were saying there, as Nynaeve was looking in on their conversation. Because that's the interesting part about this story is you get caught up. There's some hinting and foreshadowing in and among that Forsaken conversation, but we lose sight of it in a first read, especially because you're like, oh shoot, like Mogedion's like got Nynaeve. Forget what we just heard from the Forsaken. Doesn't even matter. All these names, whatever. Nynaeve, can you get out of here? And we're thrust right back into a conflict, and it makes us kind of slip right past that other bit. So yeah, we'll go back and go over some of that. And talk about, because actually coming up in this chapter is Gai'don. Like, she's going to talk about Gai'don being reborn and what happened, and all the kind of stuff that goes on between her and Mogedion and this struggle that they had in Teleron Riyadh. So, yeah. So it's good.
Okay.
Wow, a lot. Just a lot.
It is. It's good. It's good to be back to, is sort of the thing as we went on a little vacation there. But it's also like, I feel like now we're so much closer to the show, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And so it feels like the wheel was kind of just inching along, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's starting to rust up a little bit.
Okay, I feel like it's starting to, right, the dusty wheel, right? The rusty wheel.
The rusty wheel.
Okay, the rusty wheel. Should we start a YouTube, our own, the rusty wheel, and which, yeah.
It's sort of like, the wheel of the rusty wheel of time. It's starting to slow down a bit, and kind of do it. We should do like a follow-up show to the Dusty Wheels show and call it the Rusty Wheel. See what Matt
in which we
thinks.
only in which we only comment on his show, not even like the books or anything.
Yeah. Oh God.
Really could have done a better segment there. All right, guys. Well, hey, stay tuned for extended edition then. And I don't think we've talked about this on this podcast. I know we have on Bend the Knee, our Game of Thrones podcast. Looks like their Apple sort of changed some of their podcasting structure. And so now a lot of that Patreon content that we do think you will have access to that on Apple iTunes. It'll be a small fee as well, but just like over on Patreon, you can get those exclusive episodes over there. But now you can do it just through iTunes, which is really cool. We're sort of piecing that together right now, but you can do that. It's right there on iTunes. It's right there in your feed, and that's really cool. And actually, subscribing to our premium sort of podcast network actually is the way it works on Apple iTunes. So it'll actually give you access our premium episodes on our other podcast as well, which is Bend the Knee, our Game of Thrones podcast, and Hyperspace Hangout, our Star Wars podcast. So keep an eye out for that. It's still coming together. We're still piecing that all together, but keep an eye out for that as well. If you're somebody who wants to support the channel, but you'd rather do it just on iTunes, right on your iPhone, as opposed to, it's a lot easier than having to go to Patreon and whatever. So just keep an eye out for that as well.
Yeah, I think that's exciting, and we're looking forward to continuing the extended editions and adding in other aspects. You know, once the show starts too, we're going to be doing some after show stuff. We'll have some exclusive things there. We'll have some main stuff on the main feed for just our review of the episodes. And I'm really excited for the show to come out. And just like you said, there's like a new spark knowing that in a couple weeks we're going to Comic-Con. We're going to learn something, possibly see a trailer. Hopefully all of you who have been listening up to this point too, whether you're new to Wheel of Time or you're a veteran reader, like if you love the series and you're still in book 5 and you're still reading it, then I think you want more people to experience it, and you want more of those conversations with friends or colleagues or at the workplace, whatever it might be. It's just fun to kind of watch the community grow a little bit more, build it up a bit, and have new people and new perspectives come in and find things. Like I love listening to Matt talk about some of this stuff because it's sort of like, okay, you said this with your brother. Like some of the, like he had told you that some of the things that you point out or whatever, different than what maybe he thought, or even that a veteran reader has forgotten what that felt like first coming through the series. And so that's why I enjoy this, and I think it's unique and different, and I'm excited for it. So
yeah. Absolutely. So, all right, guys. Well, also just one quick plug here for our YouTube channel. It's at Heroes of the Horn on YouTube. We do oftentimes do a lot of just sort of just specific content for YouTube, like when a trailer drops or something like that happens. And those pretty much go up right away. So you can definitely check out that. So if you subscribe to us on YouTube, you'll get all that. You get those notifications and stuff like that anytime we post, and we do post there quite a bit as well. So anytime there's like a new trailer or something, that's almost where it's always going to be talked about first. So you can definitely check that out as well. So all right, guys, well, with that, we want to thank you for answering the call. In our next episode, we will be discussing The Fires of Heaven Part 5, chapters 36 through 43.
Yeah, and as always, friends, remember you can send us a pigeon at thehornofvalir@gmail.com, and I really appreciate those. And so as we get closer to the show, and even after you see that trailer, if you got thoughts, literally just thehornofvalir@gmail.com. Send us that pigeon, and we'd love to talk about it here on the show. So don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave that comment, or send that message to thehornofvalir@gmail.com.
We will see you soon. And remember that the grave is no bar to our call.